Hi, it's Paulie here. Cheers. Limoncello. Lovely. Alright, so miniatures games. Ancients has been a long-running love of mine. That's kind of how I got into all these crazy hobbies at the very beginning. The FX Purple Primer. The FX Guide to Ancients War Games. So, I keep a watch on kind of what's happening as far as Ancients rules go. There's a couple of sets popular at the moment. I want to introduce you to one that I think is really good. Impetus. Now, a lot of games rules get incredibly mired down in complex rules and so on. These ones don't. They keep it simple. This is unusual in many ways because it's actually written by an Italian author. There's a really healthy gaming community in Italy. I've talked back and forth with the authors actually, and they're really nice guys. And I really want to get to some of their conventions sometime. They seem great. So look, fabulously illustrated with, you know, photographs of people's collections and so on. Now one of the little things with this is, because it's Italian done, when they've got abbreviations for things, we're used to seeing things like heavy infantry, HI, light cavalry, LC. Of course these are abbreviations, they've got the abbreviations of the Italian terms. So there is a bit of a blink. I think it's rather sweet when you see this. It's like, oh, FL? Oh, well, yeah, it'll be foot, or PL, what's that? Oh, pied de liège. Oh, okay, yeah, light foot. All right, cool, we got it. So yes, you do have to kind of keep a little bit alert sometimes for the contractions. What these rules do is they are particularly aimed at people playing like 28mm. You can play them with any size, of course, but they use quite a large base for a unit. So it's like, what, 120mm or something. So we're talking big. But there's no strictures as to how many figures should be on these bases. The idea is the base can be done up as kind of a little diorama of your own. So say if you are doing a unit that's Roman Legion, if you want to do like, you find some of these wonderful figures where they're all locked in a tortoise, so you've got like all the shields locked together with the shields on top, do that. Or if you want like, yeah, these guys charging forward, you know, following their centurions or whatever, do that. Or you want them like as if they're fighting their way forward, and you put a couple of like dead Gauls on the bottom there, and the centurion reeling back, and guys like, I'm rallying forward. You can do all that, you know. I want to do ancient Egyptian. I want Pharaoh on his mighty chariot, or I want a couple of Hittites for him to run over. And there are some beautiful things like the Aventine miniatures elephants, which I adore. Got a terrible fixation on war elephants, but you know, you can get these wonderful things. We've got an elephant rearing. You can put someone in his trunk. So yes, all right, I'm going to put a Roman in his trunk and a couple of dead Romans lying around. So I can make a whole, you know, elephant prancing up and down on dead Romans motif. And you know that instead of just like, it's an elephant on a base. Like, no, you made a whole little diorama thing happen here. Great. So we have the expected kind of spread of weapons and so on. But they actually go into great detail about different missile weapons. So it's like composite bow, short bow, long bow, crossbows, handguns, and these same rules do cover up to Renaissance. So they've got like arquebuses and so on. Slings, javelins, but there are different classes within them. So you've got like longbow A and B, and so on. So some of those are like, oh, this is like highly skilled, dense packed kind of longbows. These are sort of more kind of scattered or not as powerful. Or, so you do get different qualities of missile weapons, and of course you get like long spears, pike. You get, you know, pole arms and these sorts of things. They've got a class of weapons that are hurled before impact. So that's for Pillar or Francisca or Solarians, or, you know, like very heavy iron javelins. And they do turn up way more frequently actually than I've seen in other rules. You know, like some of the classical Indian palace guard troops. Yes, they do have iron javelins that are flung. And that could also carry through to I guess if you're doing crazy Renaissance guys that, you know, all fire pistols before impact, or you know, these sorts of things, you can find all this. But anyway, it's a really nice, simple system for classifying out your troops. You can do it all. Cataphracts, the works. At the core of this system, Each of your units is marked for its combat cohesion is a number that you're going to keep track of. And impetus. When it's your turn, if there's an initiative system, you're going to be moving units. Now, there are rules for essentially opportunity movement that can interrupt other people's moves if they're moving into zones that you can control. But if you move into melee with someone charging in, you get extra impetus dice. Those targets might be able to countercharge you, in which case they gain impetus dice. If they've got pillar and so on, they also gain these kind of one-shot impetus dice, because these weapons tend to be gone once they're gone. Troops can get tired in melee and so on. As they get tired, their impetus disappears. They become, your horses get blown, you guys get tired, they don't charge home as well. Now, the core system is when you're fighting each other, you're rolling numbers of 6-sided dice and so on. What you're doing is you're causing a number of casualties, and in the end you're going to have to do some sort of test with your troop to essentially maintain its cohesion. You're doing this little disruption test. The number of kind of hits that your opponent has made with his dice, you're going to have to try and equal, or actually you can try to beat that on your dice. If you don't, you take permanent losses to that cohesion characteristic for that unit. VBU, I think. I'm not quite sure what the Italian is that it means. So it does come down to you doing a roll. Now, it seems funny, but the fact that you're essentially doing a saving roll against the damage that you've gotten, I quite like that. It doesn't just put it all into the other guy's hands. You're you feel like you're defending yourself. You're invested in this stuff. Plus, it gives you way more chance to shout and curse that your dice are letting you down, and that everybody hates you and you wish you'd never painted these goddamn Parthians, etc. Whinge, whinge, whine, whine. But it really does come down to that core cohesion characteristic. So that's the thing that you're trying to keep together. That's the thing you're trying to watch. Very clear movement rules. Everything is done by the half base width. So if you've used a different basing system, you're just using figures from another game. Easy. You just use half of the width of the base is the basic movement unit. These are just pretty easy to play, to be honest. Look, as you can see, it's not a thick set of rules, and given current modern habits for massively over illustrating everything, it's really only half of this. Speaking of illustrations, it's like, okay, so we've got lots and lots of diagrams in these. For those of us who suffered through the appalling mental scarring that was, DBM, no, this isn't a game where for some reason everyone manages to magically face each other in perfect geometric patterns. No, when you hit, you're not squaring off and you're not edging over so that everyone's precisely in corner. You're taking it as you're hitting. It's just an easy way of figuring out. You come in and you hit someone at an angle, fine. There's no need to mysteriously square them up so everything's neat. No, that's a combat. You just do it. There's army morale rules. They've got like a tournament system which is done for essentially quicker play. With the morale rules, you don't sort of take as much damage. It's to get a very clear winner and loser fairly quickly, because tournament games have to be over in time. If you're playing a friendly game, there's a longer system for determining victory. This thing has a points system for figuring out your troops, and as such they have war books, which are your army list books, which have all of the armies in there. There's a wealth of armies in this. These kind of army list books, that was one of the things that WIG did so well. They had so many weird and obscure groups. So you will find those in here. What I quite like about it is, because the rules are kind of a bit sort of It's not rules lawyery. There's nothing you can break in this. There's nowhere to have an argument. But that also means that there aren't really gimmick armies where people can go through and like, aha, I found a thing that, you know, that no one else has noticed that sort of breaks enough rules that I can, you know, clear up a few tournaments and win. Everything works the way it works. No gimmicks, no subsection 3 rule 5 that was written backwards and in mirror writing that suddenly lets you win games from other people. The differences between troops tend to speak out more in bonuses for making those saving rolls and so on. So it's like, I'll take damage or whatever, but if I'm a very deep unit or if I'm a pike unit, I'll roll more for impetus. And things play out differently against each other. If I'm skirmishers under these circumstances, you know, this happens to me. If I'm charging cavalry or whatever, I can recoil back. You know, so again, they're very crisp and clear, and it's not so many. They're not like niggly details between the troops. It's an effect that happens pretty damn clearly. So I can see why these rules are popular. They look relatively argument-free. They seem to be very clear of grey, vague rules that will allow, you know, fist-shaking arguments, or there's nothing here that's open really to misinterpretation. This is a second edition of these rules out at the moment. The main things that these second ones do is they've changed a couple of sort of troop definitions, and they essentially work the same way. So if you're playing old Impetus, you can play new Impetus, not a problem. And again, so these war books, they've got one for sort of the 3000 BC through to 44 BC, so essentially through to the crashing end of the Roman Republic, but it's got all your Bronze Age and all your chariots. Yay, chariots! Everybody loves a chariot. And it's got all of the pike, the Daci, you know, Macedonian stuff. There's a second one which is kind of 43 BC through to 1100. So that's all of your, yeah, all of your early Imperial Roman, late Roman, all your Sassanids and Parthians, and also, you know, all your Tang Dynasty and Han Dynasty, and they've done a good job on wacky eras of Japan and so on. They do concentrate. I have noticed in these war books that they've kind of concentrated a bit on stuff that I guess suited their games groups a bit. So there's not a lot of scholarship done on Indian armies of the period. So they've kind of, yeah, we've got classical, yeah, we've got Mauryan. Oh, that's it. Okay, you know, obviously people in that group weren't that interested in specifics about like Indian empires and so on, but you know, Chinese and, you know, 101 different steppe empires are all in there. And the final war book it's Europe from 1100 to 1336. For some reason, Far East 1100 to 1600 AD. So it's got Joseon Korean, it's got samurai stuff. It's got Ming Chinese and all these kind of things in there, and of course you've got, you know, Mongol and Yuan Chinese. So if you want to do Mighty Mongol Conquest and all this kind of jazz, it's all in there. So the resources are excellent. The fact that you're making these kind of cool dioramas, I think from a modeler's point of view, is very interesting. You're not sort of pedantically, no, it has got to be exactly 8 things on this thing. Well, they don't fit, man. Oh, we're going to have to saw bases away and make 8 things fit, because that's what they're all saying. Oh, shut up. You're making something that looks good on the table, because that's what this is really about. It's kind of like a model theatre that you're making. So, you know, I think modelling-wise it's popular. I think the rules are crisp and clear. So these are a great choice. And not a bad teaching set. I think a brand new player who's never played Ancients before could get into these pretty easily. There's not a lot to learn. Obviously, as you play the game, you'll get, you know, better at it. But it's not a long read. Movement, clear. Initiative, clear. Impetus dice, combat, yeah. Make your saving throws, yeah. You lose when it gets hit, gotcha. Done. So look, highly, highly, highly recommended. You'll get a good game out of them, and you'll get a really pretty looking game out of them. Impetus, great piece of work. If you are thinking of getting back into Ancients, give these a try. The guys who make them, you can order straight off their website. I got these from Italy to Australia in a matter of a few days. They were really good. They were apologetic because, you know, oh, some of the guys have got COVID, so it's going to take an extra day. Like, do you have any idea how long it takes for stuff to reach Australia? Anyway, Impetus, a great piece of work. Go out and give it a shot. Cheers! And if you like the videos, hey, like and subscribe. Hey!